Donald Trump's hometown of New York City has been trying to break up with him for years now. Ever since he was elected president, multiple buildings have physically taken his name down from them. Trump Tower has lost its luster for buyers, and even the ice rinks in Central Park are scrubbing his name from them. And it looks like he may have finally received our message. In late September, he and Melania filed to move their primary residence from Trump Tower, New York, to his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida. Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, who's covered him for a long time, the first to report the residence change, encapsulated Trump's relationship with the Big Apple. She writes this, quote, "He came of age in Queens, built Trump Tower, starred in The Apprentice, bankrupted his businesses 6 times, and drew cheering crowds and angry protesters to Fifth Avenue after his election. Through it all, President Trump, rich, bombastic, and to many Americans, the epitome of a New Yorker, was intertwined with the city he called his lifelong home. No longer. The table's back." Rav, you've known him as a New Yorker. What do you think?
He was in New York, but he was never of New York. You would not see him around even where people in real estate would go, the watering holes. He was not sociable. He is the kind of person that was all about Trump. And it's not easy to fit in social circles when the beginning, end, and middle of your conversation is you. And that's all he would do. So you knew he was here. He was always in the tabloids, but he was not one that was of New York. And most New Yorkers, when it hit the press this morning, Maggie's, were happy. I had 4 moving companies call me and say, "Can I donate my services?" They would love to help him move out.
Let me ask you about some of the things that have, I think, most haunted his presidency, even from his perspective. He's been under criminal investigation for longer than he's not as president. I mean, was he thought of to be dodgy?
Oh, always. I mean, you can't have Roy Cohn as your lawyer and who represented outright mobsters and not be considered dodgy. And he used to almost relish in that image. You had to remember, this is a guy that loved the tabloids, loved Howard Stern, loved Roy Cohn. No one would have ever thought that he would ever think about doing something like becoming president, which is the first thing he ever ran for, you have to remember.
Right.
But to show he wasn't a New Yorker, don't forget, he is the one that went and took Sarah Palin for pizza and used a fork and a knife, which shows you're not a real New Yorker.
That's right. That's right. Mara, I just keep thinking, too, of all the ways that New York has tried to send the message that we're just not that into him. I mean, taking his name off buildings, the indignity of that for someone with any pride of sort of their role as a real estate developer.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, if you recall in 2016, when the president went to vote at his Upper East Side polling station, he was actually booed.
Yeah.
People were leaning out of their office buildings to boo him. And, the president is at once both super New York and also not New York at all. And it's this really kind of weird, anxiety-inducing dichotomy for everyday New Yorkers. But really, when you talk to real estate folks who actually do have a huge stake in the city, they laugh at Donald Trump. And I think that has actually been a part of his identity crisis as a president. But then the flip side of that is you have New York is a city of refugees, of immigrants, of minorities, of Jews, of people who've been persecuted here and abroad. And the amount of disgust, disdain, of fear and loathing of this president, I could say, is unprecedented. And the idea that we birthed him is enough to send us collectively on the couch for quite some time.
Trump is a cartoon character, and New York has lots of characters. And he did sort of come of age in the 80s when he represented this moment of Manhattan coming back and the real estate boom, et cetera, et cetera. But he not only didn't participate with people of color in New York or the cultural life of New York, he didn't really circulate in the political life beyond just trying to angle to get zoning variances for his properties. He never participated in a constructive way with the political process. He didn't like going out and socializing. He never went to black tie events. So up and down the ladder of New York society, he was only visible when it involved self-promotion. And I think that's one of the interesting things now about he's voluntarily taking his name off what was the Woolman Rink. And they chose to do that. And this is a guy who's put his name up in human-sized letters in every city where he's built a building. He's now taking it off this little pipsqueak skating rink. Tenants and condo owners around town are taking his name down. He's also put the hotel in Washington on the block for sale. Right. And I think when you add all of this up, it's not just Trump abandoning New York, and New Yorkers are happy to be rid of him. I think there also might be some financial stress. And
which is another thread that's run through his whole life.
And state prosecutors and local prosecutors have really put the squeeze on his foundation, on his anything that they can do to squeeze him. Trying to find his tax records and subpoena them. Local prosecutors.
And the business is just turned down in some of these properties as well.
The problem he's going to have is also bias, because who wants to come and say, I'm buying Trump towers and I'm sleeping in the room Donald Trump used to sleep?
That's right.
It's not a big
easier
market
to sell
for
if
that.
his name's
it's
off
not
of
a big
it.
market. And the other thing, no matter how small it may be, where's the Trump library going to be? It certainly shouldn't be in New York.
No.
So he has a better shot in somewhere way out on a golf course in Florida than to have a Trump library. Can you imagine him building a Trump library?
What are they going to fill it with, Rev? All his tweets?
Well, it's not going to be that large. Now, if you do the investigation of Trump, you're going to need miles. But the content of his presidency, we won't need much room. Maybe my apartment.
Are you volunteering it?
No.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.